it going, everybody? Thank you so much for joining me today on the My Bourbon Journey Whiskey Review channel. Today we're taking a look at something I'm super excited to kind of get into. Since we visited the distillery not that long ago, right in the middle part of October 2021, I was able to get my hands on both the FAE-01 and FAE-02. Today we're going to basically be focusing on the newest release here in fall, part of the Wood series through Maker's Mark. This is going to be the FAE-02. So what exactly is the FAE-02? So FAE stands for fatty acid esters. So basically it's them not wanting to strip any of those components out of the whiskey and remaining or leaving those in that whiskey that's going to increase or allow the flavor of that whiskey to really shine. So FAE-02 was released here in fall of 2021, right around kind of the end of September-ish. And I just was able to get my hands on this a couple of weeks ago and wanted to get a review of this in after being able to taste it directly from the distillery. Was super excited to, again, of course, get my hands on it and hopefully do a review of that for you guys today. So again, FAE-02, part of the Wood series, project through Maker's Mark. This specifically comes in at 109.1 proof or 54.55% ABV. It is non-chill filtered. Again, this is going to be the fall 21 release. The FAE-01 was released in spring of 21. And again, as we get into it, we'll go through a little bit of a comparison of the two as well. So it is non-age stated, and the MSRP on this is right around that $65 in terms of what it was I paid for it at the distillery. So for the most part, it should be in that range, depending on where you guys are within the United States. So why don't we go ahead and we'll kind of get into the review. Again, we're going to focus on today the FAE-02 fall 21 release. So as you can see, color-wise, really nice, rich amber kind of copper color. Again, non-chill filtered. I'd like to move the whiskey around in the glass. Was able to taste this in the Rick House at Maker's Mark, and it was just an incredible experience. But once you get outside of that, you got to get into the environment like this, kind of more of a controlled environment, not all the other influences of other whiskeys, kind of get into the whiskey. So let's dive into the nose. Cheers. Oh man, that right away, that rich, sweet oak, really nice fresh caramel. So when I say fresh caramel, I'm talking about more along the lines of like a fresh Werther's or like a fresh caramel that you may get from like a confectionery, store, something like that. Just that richness that's there. It's more of like even outside of caramel, like a Werther's or a butterscotch, something like that as well. But definitely the caramel apple, cinnamon, apple cinnamon pie. There's a huge influence of that on this nose. And I think the pie aspect is probably more of kind of like that doughy aspect of this. Now, again, the tried and true or the one mash bill that Maker's operates off of, I believe is 70% corn, 16% wheat, and I think 14% malted barley. So a fairly high malted barley, kind of within that mash bill. But again, this is what they use. Their base is always that mash bill, cast strength, unless we're talking about a different kind of release. But that's the base on this one. Oh, that caramel, apple, cinnamon. There's like this kind of potpourri aspect that's there to it. Very nice and doughy, bready. Nice rich vanilla is almost like a vanilla custard. Nice rich like espresso notes. And fresh fruit. There's a nice fruit aspect. So it's a darker fruit, but a little bit more muted. It's not a heavy, dark fruit influence, but it's definitely there on the fruity side of things. Yeah, I'd say more of like a strawberry. Strawberry is kind of coming to mind. Maybe even like a little bit of a strawberry pie. There's that pastry influence, just like kind of the caramel apple pie. It's very fragrant. Yeah, really nice vanillas. All right, more importantly, I mean, it smells delicious. It smells like if you could eat this, this is exactly what you'd want, like right around the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas and stuff quickly approaching. That smell that's there resonates really well. Kind of like the inner chubby kid kind of coming out with all those fruit and kind of food notes there. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the taste. Cheers. Very creamy, mouth coating. Again, by not stripping out all of those fatty acids, things along those lines, it all helps in coating the palate. Now, when you coat the palate, of course, that's allowing for all of those flavors to really kind of develop and leave all the flavors that you really want in a whiskey there. By eliminating those oils and things along those lines, it just makes it a little bit thinner, not as mouth coating. With something like this, again, non-chill filtered, I mean, specifically being the FAE series, it's leaving all of that stuff in. They're not stripping any of that away, so it's going to remain on the palate, which will translate into more flavor. I mean, it's very rich, complex, mouth coating, caramels, that apple cinnamon. Again, there's that fruit aspect that's there to it, but not overly fruity. Nice chocolates, that espresso that's there on it as well. But again, the one thing that resonates with me is that apple cinnamon, the cinnamon, apple, caramel, that combo, pie, all of that. It's an absolutely delicious, kind of decadent bourbon, but not overly sweet to the point where you're focusing on it being so sweet. There's nice layers that are there to it, but a really nice overall kind of complexity, offers an awful lot in terms of the flavor profile. Fresh caramels for sure. Apple cinnamon all day long. Might even be like that apple cinnamon crunch cereal, something along those lines. Nice vanillas, nice caramels, very mouth coating. Nice coffee notes, almost like a fresh coffee or espresso, maybe a little bit of a chocolate kind of undertone. But again, the one thing that's nice is it coats the entire palate. Like rather than focusing on front, middle, back, it just really coats the entire mouth really well. So it's a nice experience overall. Touch of dryness, not very much, but there's a little hint of a dryness that's there. Maybe even a little bit of a black pepper, maybe on the back end, touch of black pepper, not dominant by any means. But again, yeah, some nice fruit, maybe like a fruit cake, something like that. I could see that being, part of the deal. Fantastic bourbon. I mean, I'm a huge fan of this. I mean, after visiting the distillery and finding out a little bit more about what they do and, their passion behind everything, it was just something I had to get my hands on and ultimately do a review of this for you. So if we talk about the finish on the FAE-02, again, I think it's all of medium plus, maybe upwards of the long side of things. And again, it still comes back to that apple, cinnamon, pastry, chocolate, espresso, some fruit components that are there on it. Very nice, well balanced, well put together, bourbon, and one that I think for all of the hunting people do in today's day and age, to be able to go to the distillery or even have the opportunity to buy this off the shelf, I think people are kind of missing the boat. I think this is definitely one of those whiskeys that people need to be, going out and finding. I think you'll find that it's for its price, and in today's day and age and market of all these whiskeys and bourbons, I think it offers an overall value that is really, really nice. So, if you're considering or on the fence about this, I wouldn't even hesitate. I think this is definitely something that you have to add. For me, it's so good that I think it's probably going to factor into that top 10 kind of whiskeys of the year. I think it's really that good. So definitely go out and find the FAE-02 from Maker's Mark. So let's do a little quick comparison from the FAE-02 back to the original spring release of 21, the FAE-01. Definitely much more fruit forward. There's still those nice caramels and vanillas, but it's much heavier on the fruit aspect. Like it is, I mean, it's a lot of citrus. It's a lot of those kind of just fresh fruits. You know, again, you've got some of the strawberries and the raspberries, all of that, a little bit muted, but it's still very fruit forward. It's very spring kind of in a glass. Very nice. Still some of those cinnamons. All right, let's give this one a try. Yeah, very, very different. Much more, I'll say from 2 to 1, much more, let's say, muted. I think you definitely get more of the orchard fruit, lighter fruits, lighter kind of cinnamon notes on that. I still think you get a little bit of the complexity. I just don't think the FAE-01 is kind of on par with 02. Now, if you prefer something that's a little bit more on the, let's say, lighter side, but still very well balanced, full of flavor, the FAE-01 may be a little bit more for you. If you want something a little bit more bold, richer, a little heavier, maybe a little thicker, creamier, I think the FAE-02 would be a little bit more for you. I think they're both incredible. They're just very different. So if you know that, just try not to, necessarily compare the two. I know it's difficult, but to do a comparison today of what each one has to offer, you can't go wrong with either one. You just have to understand that both are going to be a little bit different. It's part of their wood series. And again, one thing we learned with the FAE, or really what they do, these releases are years in the making. So we found out that the FAE, or the wood series, can be upwards of, them going back 3 years ago and going through all of these tests to get to the point where they ultimately end up with a release. So an awful lot goes into, these releases and really bringing a nice, solid quality product, to all of us. So at the end of the day, I'm going to recommend both of these. Both of them for different reasons, both fantastic in their own right. But again, like I said, FAE-02, a little bit more bold, richer. FAE-01, a little bit softer, more fruits, things along those lines. So there you have it. Hopefully that helps you if you're looking at one or both, or are able to get both. Again, I recommend both as well. I mean, just to have both of these, I think they're both really fantastic bourbon whiskeys. So thank you so much for tuning in to another one of my reviews. Greatly appreciate it. Love all the support from you guys. Thank you so much for all of that. If you'd like to follow me, you can on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those places at My Bourbon Journey. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can through my Patreon page, which I'll have linked in the description below. In addition to any kind of channel support, it also allows you to become part of the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, where Jason and I, Jason from the Mash and Drum, have a whiskey club. We do a lot of barrel picks, offer those up to the Patreon community. So if that's of interest, make sure you check out the link in the description below. Want to say thank you again, and as always, it's about the journey and not the destination.